Alright, here we go. So, the tank is asking if this is set to heroic, and I let him know it's mythic, and he asks, is it heroic? No. So, now in pugs, I typically won't burn feasts, and I'm not going to burn augments, especially if it is a mythic 0. Um, I could, uh, but unless I'm really struggling to keep the group alive, I just much rather hang on to the augments for some of the more beefier needs. Just some simple food here to bring a little bit more mastery. And then we should be almost ready to rock and roll. As it looks like we're just waiting for magical. Alright, so I'm going to get a earth shield up on our tank. And a riptide. One of the things that I do enjoy about playing a healer is it does put into a different perspective how people typically will play a class. So we can obviously see that the tank is well off to the races and is already going to take a lot of damage, which is going to cause me to burn a considerable amount of trinkets, reading trinkets, my apologies, a considerable amount of cooldowns as a result of trying to keep him up. I'm going to go ahead and actually add him as my focus here. Uh, this is not a smart pull. That guy is actually just kind of shooting everybody. You'll notice nobody called for the crowd control. Here comes the boom. It's more like you're going to drop if you don't get your stuff in order there, son. Please do not drop the crowd control. Oh, look at that. Like clockwork, it is the hunter. So, let's see what we can. Oh, the joys. The joys. Let's see if we can maybe crowd control this guy. I'm not horrible, but this is going to take a little bit, I think. So here we go. Please tell me we're going over to the right. And you'll notice as he goes to the right, we have just pulled these other groups. And we're just going to follow him. And he's going to take a lot of damage. Because why? He just is. I actually don't really think I don't think he's actually geared enough for this. But we'll see. Willing to always give it a shot. I typically don't mind tanks learning mechanics, or at least making the attempts for things. I do typically mind when they're just being reckless. Obviously, he wants to get this done. One of the other things I like about being a healer shaman, just as my own little damage mitt, is going into Ghost Wolf and the self-heal that comes with that. Get a little bit of DPS action. Make myself feel useful. It's nice to know that our rogue was AFK. That rogue is going to make the difference, all the difference in the world on this fight. And okay, scenic route. So I don't know. I didn't see him go AFK either. So all right, I'm going to give the example here of that knockback that we talked about earlier, with my being farther back. You'll notice he got knocked right back into me. And again, same thing. He gets knocked back. There we go. Obviously, I'm not thinking that we're going to need to burn any type of lust, but typically on the first boss on high-end mythics, especially if the bosses are tyrannical, it is recommended to burn lust on the first boss. Lust is a complete waste. Using it on the pirate encounters, only because it's such an on-the-move fight. There's so many mechanics, and depending on which pirates you're actually going to be fighting this week, it can make the difference if that lust is even going to be worth it. So we'll just keep this guy going.
Beware.
There we go. Loving the bird, loving the bird. Hating the AoE. Give it some love, give it some love.
Beware.
And it was a good fight. Good fight, good fight. Alright. And head on over to the next set. You'll notice again, the person that was way back here, that knockback had occurred, and sent the tank way into this guy. Yeah. Love it. Why do I have a feeling we're going to see a rather large pull? You see where this is about to go, don't you, team? You all see where this is about to go. So, there we go, and threat's always a problem, because as soon as the tank is trying to get threat on any of the adds, typically there's already so much AoE that's going on, it's impossible for the tank to just grab it right away. If you have a tank that just kind of is already engaged, and all of a sudden these adds come in, the DPS is just going to immediately blast the hell out of every little thing, without taking into consideration that the tank may just not have any threat on those targets yet that are still incoming. DPS just sees the target incoming and assumes I need to nuke it. That's not always a good case, so just some friendly advice. Give your tank just a few moments to acquire that threat, because the tank is now having to contend with the threat going to the healer and now the DPS. So this week in particular, Eudora is friendly. This is important because Eudora is the one that likes to jump around and shoot at everybody with that grape shot. It is difficult to dodge if you're not paying attention, particularly if there is the rotating blade that is out as well. So trying to dodge the swirly blade and trying to dodge this boss that's jumping around like a kid on crack can be very difficult to keep an eye on, and the grape shot typically will, depending on the level of difficulty of the mythic, could 2-3 shot your party down. So obviously we're not doing any type of kiting with that blade.
Beware.
My recommendation on that, when you do have the blade, is to just kite that blade around, and obviously make sure you're not kiting it into your healers. And then the DPS honestly could just stand to the side of that blade and DPS down safely without coming in contact with the blade. If the blade comes back up again, I'm actually going to use this opportunity to just quickly show you what I mean. But it would just be like this, since it looks like he's going to die. So the tank would be similar to what we're doing. The tank would be walking the blade, walking the blade, walking the blade, and then the DPS would just be on the side of it doing this, walking with the blade, but actually not coming into contact with it. So here we go for some good times. Okay. I'm a little concerned because I am in close range. And of course I always do recommend don't be in close proximity. This is a very tight location where he currently has us. Also with the poles here, just kind of keeping in mind that uh, you can get chained in the middle, just like that. So, as I'm taking damage, as I'm going to try to move and do all my stuff of things, probably wasn't the smartest of pulls, but is what it is. We'll just do everything we can to keep the tank up, which... if I have to... sometimes I have to stand in this stuff and things, can't move because the tank's going to drop. Yes, I have reincarnation, although I would prefer not to use it. And yes, there's 100 different combinations of things that I could click to try to move, try to do this, that, and the other. But when you are in the thick of it, as I just was, many of you know that sometimes you just have to spam that key, take as much damage as you can try to mitigate without moving, because if you move and stop casting for more than 2 seconds, the tank dies. Let's see if I can get me a piggy, bringing home the bacon. Come on. Come here, baby. Come here. I want to... Oh. Good times, good times. I'm not really feeling the, here comes the boom, though. Alright, so he is engaged. And we'll just get a little bit of love going on here. It's not a horrible run. Keeps us on our toes. I do think that for the tank to be at that gear level, I think he should have been a little bit more cautious. But it is what it is. The group appears to be fairly cohesive. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on for all of you here. So you can just kind of look at the damage being done. This is an overall, by the way, of all damage being put out. This is not gauging off of specific fights. While we wait for this, I want to point something out on your damage meters. They're not exactly precise. If you engage combat, and let's say that combat goes for 3-4 minutes, but during that time you're dead for half of that, until the combat phase ends, that's when the countdown, that's when your monitoring actually also ceases to log as well. So unless you are engaged in combat for the entire duration and you're not having to break away, do any form of crowd control, or other mechanics of the fight that involve you moving, it kind of actually does cheat you a little bit in saying that, oh, you only averaged 20k DPS, oh no, you only averaged 10k DPS. Well, you were doing great DPS, but because you had to stop in the middle, it's going to penalize you as a result of that. So we're going to get this guy on the other side of me and get some chum going on. Because when you do have that shark on you, absolutely put the blood in between you and that shark. And let's see what we get here. Members of my guild were in a run earlier. We had the pleasure of meeting up with a shaman who just returned to the game from Lich King, and did a fantastic job through here. Had not ever been to a plus any mythic, and ended up getting the getting the parrot mount at the end. So I was actually really pleased with that. Was really happy for him. There's nothing like taking some folks out to help them, um, help them learn the fights, and also see that they get rewarded very well with a goodie at the end. So there's an inside joke that I have with folks talking about I'm going to make a guild and I'm going to call it Use Your Damn Interrupts. Because nobody seems to know how to use their interrupts. Why? It goes back to the damage, right? Oh, I don't want to stop my DPS. I don't want to stop my DPS and risk my damage. Well, it's not just about the damage, it's about the mechanic, and it's about survival. So it is something you've kind of got to keep in mind that being on top of the damage charts doesn't always necessarily make it a successful run if you guys are wiping consistently because you have somebody not wanting to do an interrupt, or you have somebody that is so used to just pressing buttons 1, 2, 3, and because it's not part of their air quote rotation, they will refuse to use it. Our guild thankfully looks at the metrics of, we don't care necessarily about the numbers of things, we look at more, did we succeed, did we do it in a good time, were we comfortable, doesn't matter who topped the damage meters at the end of the day. If we have a rogue in the party, and that rogue has not utilized any interrupts at all,
Beware.
it's kind of like, really, man? You're kind of built for doing that. So give this guy some extra loving because we're gonna have some explosions coming, all kinds of goodies.
Beware.
Here we go. It's all the boom. We'll just shoot him. I do like the focus key though. One of the things, my hotkeys personally, since I was to target the boss and I was to shoot him, but then I need to keep up my tank, I can just hold down my shift key and I can actually just click with what I need to, and I will then target my focus. And I'm going to be targeted for the barrage. There we go. Which, by the way, you can stagger those shots so you don't actually have to fill the battlefield. You can actually be just a little bit more intelligent about your placement. So again, just shift, hit my key, and I can still keep an eye on my primary focus, all while still helping out on the DPS. So, and there we go. We'll give our lovely bid adieu. Cheat and get kind of a quick repair, and we will go ahead and leave the party, and we will hearth back. And get back to Paralysis. I want to show you something on this meter here, just for a few moments, and what really matters in a fight. Damage is important, but mechanics and utilization of those mechanics by their respective classes are just as important. For instance, this is called Details. I don't go through all the nitty-gritty with this add-on, but just overall, I'm looking at the damage done. One of the things I like to do is I like to look at damage taken. So obviously this is the tank, Super Bach. We'll notice that the rogue took minimal damage. I took minimal damage. Overall, the team did take minimal damage, not just because they were ranged, but this looks good. It's not uncommon to see somebody top the damage chart, but then their damage taken is actually right underneath the tank, like considerably amount of damage, just because they were being reckless. Let's just take a peek at the interrupts here. So you'll notice the rogue doesn't even show up on the interrupt list. Why? It breaks his rotation, it will interrupt his DPS, so he did not cast one interrupt. The tank, of course, did. Looks like the hunter did get a silencing shot, and the mage, of course, a counter spell. In all fairness, the silencing shot is a long cooldown, and the counter spell is as well. But the rogue, out of all of our party members, should have been the one leading the charge and interrupting all spellcasting if possible. So that's a discussion for another video as I go into meters, metrics, recording, tactics, and things to look for utilization for your team. Although Raider IO may be important to a degree, and although the damage may be important to a degree, I will show you some of the other tips and tricks of things that we look for in the utilizations of the classes to get the best experience and the best enjoyment. Nobody wants to sit there and just hit keys 1, 2, and 3, especially if they know there's many other really cool things they can do. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off as Sky Dreamer, and we'll get another video going.